And we are on.
Late night from Willowdale. I know it's only a couple days after the last one, but that we sometimes don't do one for 2 months, and then we do one a couple days in a row. But let's do this one quick. So this is a local story, but it's been generating a lot of buzz. Uh, it's about transit. Now, transit planning in Toronto is a soap opera, uh, uh, and you know the, it's nauseating. But the latest story is that the Ford provincial government, the Ford government, wants to take over the subway expansion and the subways in general, I guess, from the Toronto Transit Commission. I think this is a good idea. The TTC is the city government and the TTC are pretty incompetent. Uh, can't the fact that they can't get a rapid transit expansion out to Scarborough, and they've been planning this for years, is just over the top. I mean, they built subways up to Vaughan, subways up to Baffin Island, and subways to nowhere. Yet they can't get something out to Scarborough. It's a disgrace. But I'm not going to belabor that point. This is a local issue, and but transit's a big issue anywhere you live on the planet Earth. Um, I've often believed that in Toronto's case and in Southern Ontario, that there should be a regional. Ford shouldn't stop at just taking over transit expansion or subway expansion or the city subway system. He should basically take over the whole transit system in Toronto, plus the regional transit authorities, and create one large transit body called the Greater Toronto Transit Authority. And they have that in San Francisco with BART, with the Bay Area Rapid Transit. And then have one single fare within the zone. I know that would create, I know that's a lot of money, but if you could encourage people from all parts of the GTA to travel transit freely in different parts of the GTA at one fare, whether it's taking 2 subway stops or going from Brampton to downtown Toronto, it's one fare, $3.50, whatever. One system. Incorporate the GO system. Incorporate all the regional transit authorities: York, Brampton, Peel, Mississauga, you name it, Durham, uh, and the Toronto Transit Commission (TTC) into one system, coherent transit system. That's transit is the lifeblood of major cities. In the 21st century, these are the arteries. And we see with congestion on the roads, Toronto's one of those congested cities on planet Earth. If you
Nothing
had,
compared to India, though.
well, yeah, I mean, there are worse places. But you need a coherent transit system and a regional transit system with, like, now they're expanding GO trains. That's good. Started under Kathleen Wynne and McGuinty. That's good. And even Ford hasn't stopped it. GO transit service to all-day service to all these suburban communities, very important. But I would think incorporate it all into a regional transit body, and it's a mixture of trains, subways, streetcars, buses, whatever, and have consistent service all day long at a low cost. And yes, it has to be subsidized by the state, no question. But think what that would do. It just would take a lot of cars off the road and create all sorts of efficiencies, and it would be great for combating climate change, or it's good for the environment and all that. So yeah, that's what I think should happen. Everything's provincial, of course. The city council doesn't want to lose their power, but Toronto City Council is, it's a malfunction. I mean, it's just a joke. So anything that takes power away from Toronto City Council is a good thing. Anyways, one regional transit body, coherent transit strategy, and if Ford could do that, well, that would be a legacy. Something of what Bill Davis and John Robarts and Leslie Frost did. His previous conservative, his predecessors, as it were. Of course, they were progressive conservatives, and he's definitely not that. But I look at New York City, where they don't have a coherent transit strategy, where there's fighting. The state actually runs the subways. There's fighting between the city and the state. The New York City transit system is decrepit. It's old. They have signals in the New York City subway system that go back to the 1930s. So, I mean, really? This is considered one of the greatest cities on the planet Earth? So New York City is a classic example of one of the world's great cities is being brought down by a decrepit transit system, and there's all these infighting, and no one wants to spend the money, and yeah, so uh, you need, if you're competing with cities like Shanghai, all these cities in Asia that have amazing transit systems, Japan, China, like yeah, in Europe too, with cities. I'm not saying everything in Europe is perfect. I thought, you've ever been on the city transit in London and Paris. It's some of it's kind of decrepit too. But there are a lot of cities in Europe. A buddy of ours is just in Switzerland. 9 minutes to take the subway from Zurich airport into downtown Zurich. I mean, they got it right. I mean, Amsterdam is an amazing transit system. So Copenhagen, so. Anyways, I'm rambling. Transit, vital. Arteries, important. Cities are where the growth is in the 21st century, and the transit systems are the arteries for that growth. Okay, I'm not going to belabor this. I just did a letter to the editor. Hey, letters to the editor, my latest book. And I haven't done one in a while, but I had to write about transit because that's a pet issue and the silliness that goes on about these transit issues. But
I think the first letter in that book is basically on
yeah, a
transit.
lot of my letters are local issues, and these two books are on transit. Always write letters to the editor. Please write letters to the editor.
I will. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm
shy.
gonna. I read something in the New York Times the other day. I'm going to quote the New York Times twice, and then we're going to end this video because it's going to be a short video. But there was a fascinating piece on Sunday's New York Times about Putin and the strength of Putin. And they were saying, Putin is not the strong man that everyone thinks he is. In Russia, there are all these competing forces that go against Putin. For instance, they were talking about the crackdown on religious minorities in Russia, and Putin doesn't agree with it. He said, this is crazy. It shouldn't happen. But this still happens because there are all these competing forces in Russia. There's the Orthodox Church. There's the military. There's this entrenched bureaucracy, which is massive. And they all compete against Putin. And we always think of Putin as the ultimate strongman, right? But he's not. He's got all these competing forces. And Russia's a kind of decrepit, ancient place in a way. It's yes, they've done some amazing technological advances and stuff on all sorts of things, space and you name it, but it's still a very decrepit, ancient country. And this idea that there's this, this threat, or the Russia's a threat. Yeah, they're doing all sorts of things in cyber and all that. And yes, I'm sure they meddled in the U.S. election, but
even the cyber stuff was kind of misguided, right? Because they didn't really, the target audience and all this stuff was kind of up in the air, and
Yeah, Russia was just trying to
do something.
Yeah, they're a country on the decline. They never really recovered from the collapse of the Soviet Union. They want to exert their influences in the world. That's why they're sending planes to Venezuela. They just want to try to exert their influences, but they know they're kind of they're declining, are declining power and have been. Their economy is like pathetic. They depend on one resource, oil, and the world's awash in oil. Russia is not the powerful country that a lot of people want to make it be, and Putin doesn't have the power that people think he does. There are a lot of competing forces in Russia that go against Putin, and so it was interesting. Yeah, he's not. Russia is it's not the powerful country that people say it is.
Even his wealth is kind of like he has a tenuous hold on his wealth, right? Because he depends on being in political power to rake in those billions.
Well, yeah, it's true. He's supposed to be the wealthiest guy in the world, but who knows? I mean, Russia, it's such a, what Churchill said, an enigma wrapped in a riddle and blah, 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 blah. Russia's an odd place, but it's not the power that, it's not the powerful country that people think it is. And neither is China, by the way. China's beset by all sorts of problems.
Well, they're
not the powerful country that people give it.
Their GDP is down, right?
Yeah, they're don't count the U.S. out, okay? Everyone talks about the decline of American power, and the U.S. definitely has its problems. Huge debt, inequality. But yeah, U.S. is still the most powerful country in the world. Anyways, on that note, the Mueller thing. Now I got to put on my reading glasses. There's so much was said after this thing came out on Sunday. But there was a fascinating piece in the New York Times by a gentleman. I'll put on my reading glasses here. Farhad Manjoo, and this was in, today's New York Times, March 27th.
What's his name?
Farhad Manjoo, and his it's at the column, and he says we were seduced by collusion. He basically says it's time. Collusion was an escape because covered up American shortcomings, and says why was Trump even elected in the first place? And he writes this, and I'm not gonna. He says, "Here's my theory: collusion was a seductive and convenient delusion for many Americans." He writes this. Here's my theory: collusion was a seductive, and convenient delusion for many Americans. The simple truth was, for many Americans, the simple truth that Mr. Trump really had won, that Trump had actually won, was too terrible to bear. The ease with which a racist, misogynist, serial con man had slipped past the every gatekeeper in American life suggested something deeply sick at the core of our society. In particular, Mr. Trump's win pointed to tectonic failures within the mainstream news media, whose leading brands had fanned the showman's rise with copious television coverage and elevated his opponent's trifling and email management kerfuffle into a scandal of world historic import. And then there was the failure of the political parties. After years of playing footsie with extremists, the Republicans created an environment in which a racist demagogue could swallow them whole. The Democrats, meanwhile, dismissed the economic and social unease, roiling their ranks, and nominated an unpopular candidate who lacked any novel vision for American life. And of course, then she forgot to campaign in Michigan and, of course, Wisconsin. So you had this racist thug crook get elected, and people felt guilty about it. And the collusion, I agree, and this idea that Russia, he was in cohorts with Russia, and that caused the election of Trump, and to the detriment of Hillary and the Democrats. I thought it was very interesting. Yeah, what is sick in American society that they can elect a guy like Trump, totally ill-qualified to be in that office, who's a racist, who's a misogynist, who's a crook, who's a total sleazebag, and the American people elected him. Yes, Hillary won the popular vote by 3.5 million votes, but he won the Electoral College. What is it about what is it about the so-called, I hate that term, working class, that decided to vote for Trump, a guy who craps in a gold-plated toilet? What is going on in American society that guy got elected? Yes, Hillary had her defaults, no question. She didn't run a good campaign. She really had no economic vision. And she was disliked by a lot of people because a lot of people thought the Clintons were kind of sleazy. But this whole thing with the emails thing was a joke. That was a joke. And now the Republicans say they're going to go after that again. That's just incredible. Life is complex. Trump brought it down to simple propositions. I'll bring your jobs back. We're going to go after China, go after Canada, Mexico, whatever. But life is complex. And you can't, a lot of these, as we saw with GM closing down these plants, these jobs don't come back. Hillary didn't have a coherent economic vision. But how do you have a coherent economic vision when things are changing so rapidly? Within 15 years, by 2030, 2032, 2033, half the jobs that are around today will be replaced by robots, by automation, by AI. So how do you have a vision in when the economy is slowly being automated and people are losing their jobs through the technology? And how do you have an economic vision when things are happening so quickly? it's you can have simple, you can, as Trump did, appeal to simple ideas, bring your manufacturing job, put these huge tariffs on, and do all that. But in a global world, it doesn't work, and it's not going to, in the end, work with Trump's campaign either. But I thought this was right. Like, the question for America is not about collusion. It's the delusion. It's the collusion delusion. And this guy had it right on. How did a guy like Trump get elected president of the United States? Okay? And this Mueller thing isn't over. The report hasn't come out in full. There'll be all sorts of other investigations. But yes, the Democrats have to focus on other things too. Like,
well,
the economy, having a good vision for the economy, making sure, and healthcare obviously is a big issue, and all sorts of things. They can't just keep focusing on this. Yeah. Go on, you were about to say.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it was a long time coming too, because I remember reading a quote by Obama, basically saying that there's something dissatisfying by having your mechanic speak Spanish to you when you go to fix your car.
Well, no, there's the United States demographics in the United States are changing,
right?
And there's a lot of Americans that are resisting that. It's no question. A lot of Americans are unsettled by the fact that there was a lot of immigration and we don't need to go there. Everybody knows this.
I'm not fixing your car, so I mean, so whether I'm from Trinidad or Mexico,
everyone knows immigration benefits economies. Canada's economy is benefited by mass immigration. Everyone knows that, and Canada is actually a poster child for handling immigration better than anyone else by integrating people. And the U.S. not so much. Used to be, but not anymore. And there's a lot of fear out there, and it's of course unplaced fear. The Americans need immigration like any society. That's why Angela Merkel, I think, realized the Germans need immigration too, and that's why she opened up society. To me, Angela Merkel is one of the greatest heroes on the planet Earth for opening up Germany. But anyways, this wasn't supposed to be a long video. So the bottom line is, just remember, in 15 years, 50% of the jobs that now exist will be replaced by automation. And nobody has a real solution to that. Okay, and on that note, more to come. But
on a closing note too, even Hillary warned the European leaders, right? Like, be careful about the right wing and immigration.
Well, yeah, I don't know what Hillary was talking about, but warning about immigration. I think she was saying she was trying to warn this could lead to extremism, but yeah, it was a bit odd. I have to admit, everyone was surprised by that.
It must be the white wine.
It must be the Chardonnay. All right, on that note.
Okay.
Bye.